And so here we are in that time of the year, when the darkness begins to eclipse the light, right? Or we might say that the light yields to the darkness. Just as the sun yields each evening as the stars come out at night. You look up in the sky and the stars aren't there, and you look in the next moment, and there they are. It's that yielding. And this eclipsing, this yielding is such a rich metaphor for our inner work, for this path of embodied healing, individuation, spiritual realization. As there are times in all of our lives, right? When everything we thought we knew about who we are, what we're doing here, what love is, what a relationship is, what it means to be whole, what it means to be happy, what it means to be at peace, what it means to live in a way that's meaningful. Where all of this can come to be dissolved. It becomes reorganized so that something new can come forward, can emerge. And when we make that pact with the universe, with the earth, with Gaia, with the goddess, with Persephone, with God, with the totality, with the Tao, when we make that deal, like, I'm ready, I want to heal, I want to awaken, I want to know what's true. That's a high voltage sort of prayer. It's important not to lose contact with that, with the power of that. Because when we make that prayer and we really mean it sincerely, the doorway opens. And there's a death that occurs that's inevitable on this path. A falling away of me and my life and how I was so sure it was all going to turn out, how it was supposed to turn out. And this falling apart and the coming back together, lies at the very essence, this process, falling apart, coming back together, falling apart, coming back together in a way that's more cohesive, in a way that's more whole, in a way that's more integrated, is the very essence. That cycle is the very essence of any embodied, relational, alchemical path of healing and spiritual transformation. And in that falling apart, where we're taken apart, which, who knows, maybe we might come to see as one of the primary tasks of the beloved, of God, of the goddess, of the ground of being, to take us apart, to rearrange us cellularly, somatically, emotionally, psychologically, so that it can infuse us with its essence, which is always of wholeness, which is always oriented in love, not always a sweet, passive, holding love, the love of the Divine Mother. We like that one. I know I do. But at times this grace will come, and I think we know this. That grace will come in a more wrathful, fierce, disorganizing way, with its intention of dissolving the status quo, dissolving the psychic status quo, so that that new essence is able to be revealed, that emptying of the cup, which is required on this path. And there are, of course, sweet and fierce types of grace, aren't there? But they're both grace. They're both equal arrows, we might say, in the quiver of the beloved. And it will make use of whatever flavor of grace that's most needed, that's most skillful, that's most compassionate, that's most effective, and that's required to open each of us in our own ways and our own times. And yes, in that falling apart, we will be asked to turn toward and grieve that which is dropping away, that which is being reorganized, the dying of that old dream of me and my life and how I was so sure that it would go. The person that would always be there by my side, my work and my livelihood, the things I enjoy doing and find meaning in, a body that isn't quite as flexible and healthy and youthful as it used to be. I mean, there may even be for some of us, or maybe most of us at certain moments, or periods in our lives, experiences of meaninglessness, of anxiety, of depression, of numbness, of doubt, of confusion, of profound emptiness and loneliness even. And perhaps these are experiences that aren't familiar to us. What is all of this about anyway? I'm not that kind of person. Where did all this come from? Here I find myself in my 50s, my 60s, my 70s, my 80s. I'm not an anxious person or a depressed person or someone who feels lonely or empty or anything like that. And we're not always able to tie those experiences, into some particular situation in our lives. Oh, it's because of this, which we want to do, of course. But it's the soul calling out to us, it's trying to reach us, and it will use an infinite number of ways, feelings, experiences, doorways, portals to find us. And it will, as we all know, begin to turn the volume up, right? If we're not listening for whatever reason. And I think as we age, there's an inevitable sort of confrontation with those existential givens of this human adventure. Experiences that are wired in, we might say, especially as we come into that metaphoric second half of life, or the third of life, which may be more accurate for most of us. Those existential givens of meaning, of aloneness, of isolation, of freedom, of responsibility. And then the greatest sort of eclipse and yielding of all, my own death, birth, old age, sickness, and death, as the Buddha described, that he witnessed when he left the palace, and this, what awoke in him this journey and this longing to know what's most true is that confrontation with these. And so baptism, crucifixion, resurrection, transfiguration, ascension, these are all alchemical processes that occur within the vessel, as the lead, the salt, the sulfur, the mercury sort of yield to their golden nature. And these are processes, of course, which are mirrored in the vessel of the human person, deep in the human heart. They're all valid. They're all sacred. They're each an equal manifestation of spirit.